Okay, namaste and welcome to the webinar on Nepal-India Security Relations during and post-COVID-19. Today's webinar is the joint initiation of Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, which is the foreign policy-based think tank in Kathmandu, and also the United Service Institution, USI India, which is the National Security and Defense Services think tank based in New Delhi, India. Today, a prominent speaker will help us to understand by offering the broader sense of COVID-19 implications on the various facets of Nepal-India security relations during and post-crisis scenario. By interlinking it with the global and regional context and share their views on how we can cope with those underlying security challenges. So to discuss with the very crucial issues, we have Retired Major General Sharma sir from India, who is also the director of USI. Similarly, we have Retired Major General Binoj Basnyat sir from Nepal, and also the Retired Major General Rajiv Narayanan sir from India, who is also the head of Center for Strategic Studies and Simulations USI. Similarly, with us, Retired Brigadier General Dr. Umesh Kumar Bhattarai sir from Nepal, and with us Navaraj, Dhakal sir, former AIG of Nepal Police, and also retired Lieutenant General G.S. Katoch sir, who is also the editorial team head USA of India. We have divided this discussion in three sub-thematic parts to better understand the security repercussions as a whole. First, we will try to analyze the COVID-19 impact or security implications in the global level, and then we'll try to rationalize the security scenario in South Asian context, and finally we'll deal with the Nepal-India relations. So I want to share a couple of points related to the first part of the of this discussion as a starter. That is COVID-19 security implications on the global level. COVID-19 is becoming one of the gravest non-traditional security threat to international peace and security. And the global public health crisis resulted from COVID-19 pandemic seems to bring the global humanitarian catastrophic consequences affecting all aspects of socio-economic areas. Like UN World Food Program has warned that we're in the brink of hunger pandemic as well with this public health crisis. So it is also affecting like a humanitarian aid force in the different countries where conflict is ongoing. We know that UN General Secretary has called for global ceasefire in the backdrop of criticism on the Security Council not doing enough to deal with the biggest security challenges, but it is also not implemented in the ground. Meanwhile, like there is also possibility of taking the advantage of this pandemic. Non-state actors can destabilize the global or regional peace and security. And similarly, like there is also the chance of domestic political upheavals taking place in the domestic levels. A likely scenario, like we know that there is the likely scenario of continuations of lockdowns as many countries don't have clear exit strategy. So we know that we need the optimum level of global cooperations to deal with this pandemic, but we are witnessing the sort of blame game between great powers, and that is definitely going to hinder the synergetic effort. So and similarly, it looks that post COVID-19 scenario, there will be like less like cooperations in the economic sector. That is likely to increase the ongoing geopolitical rivalry. And if we take the like reference of liberal theory of international relations. So basically, I want to request two of our speakers to provide the holistic sense of global security scenario during and post COVID-19 scenario. So for this, I like to request first Major General Sharma sir to put forward his remarks on the COVID-19 impact in like global security spectrum. So maybe like you can take like 8 to 10 minutes for your remarks. So, Apike sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, good afternoon to all of you, and I must thank AIDA for taking this initiative and joining USI in hosting this webinar. Since there is a paucity of time, I'll come to the subject proper. As we know that this pandemic is a black swan event, and it has induced a strategic shock, and it is bound to alter the geopolitical landscape of the world. As of today, nearly 4 million people have been infected, and nearly 207,000 people have been dead in about 188 countries. And even in India here, there is a growing number of infections to about 60,000, and nearly less than 20,000 people have died. Now, geopolitical pundits are doing different kind of, procrastination. Some people say that it will usher, a decline of US, and China will be the new hegemon to make. There is another school of thought that both countries have actually lost that capacity, or they proved incapable of leading the world. And then they feel that we are into a new kind of a zero-sum kind of a Cold War 2.0 we are running into. But the optimist view is that, well, after some dilly-dallying, new age global cooperation is going to emerge, because that is the law of evolution of civilizations and evolution of international order. I will not get into these kind of debates, but what is certain that we are more deeply into a VUCA world, a world that is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And therefore, it is extremely important for us to understand some of the major markers of pandemic, so that we can make as possible as is to a diagnostic assessment about how. Hello.
So please.
We can hear you, sir.
Take it forward.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
So we make a diagnostics of how situation is likely to pan out. And I would just flag a couple of issues, and subsequently we can address those. Firstly, as of today, there is a lack of capacity to tide over corona pandemic, because the developed countries, US and European countries, they are the worst affected, and they've not been able to cope up with the pandemic in an effective manner. And there is a risk of, second cycle of infections actually flaring up. So we are still very much in a very, very dangerous area, and we don't know how to get out of it. It has also jolted the global economy and disrupted the entire supply chain. Besides causing death, it has also accentuated hyper-nationalism, induced neo-protectionism, induced chaos, and there is a risk of some of the fragile states actually failing. It has also undermined international institutions and heightened geopolitical contestation. And at the heart of this geopolitical contestation is actually US-China rivalry, who rather than exhibiting cooperation, they are actually into an obsessive contestation, which is not seen since the times of Tiananmen Square in 1989. This unprecedented move has resulted into tit-for-tat kind of actions, both by China and United States of America, which among other things devolved, ostracizing some of their reporters, journalists, not permitting their scientists and other researchers to enter Wuhan and carrying out inquiries. So what is happening is that ultimately this tit-for-tat kind of a thing has resulted into this emerging as a major election issue in the United States of America, and Trump is going to further press his foot on the pedal as far as China bashing is concerned. It is also helping Xi Jinping, this confrontation, to emerge as a strong leader and regain his glory as a core leader which got bruised by the initial handling of the coronavirus. Now, US is also threatening a number of punitive actions which range from prosecution, imposing more tariff barriers, instituting an international inquiry to name and shame China. And leave aside Trump's stridency towards China. Today in America, there is a bipartisan view that a rising China and its strategic behavior is inimical to US national interest. So even if Trump doesn't come to power, certain degree of hostility towards China is going to persist in United States of America. But United States of America itself is not in a very good health because its own image has been sullied the way it has handled the pandemic, and it's not been able to render any assistance to the rest of the world. So China too is facing a major credibility crisis. Firstly, by withholding information for the initial 2 crucial weeks, and subsequently, not permitting an international inquiry. It also came under a lot of criticism for supplying faulty medical equipment and embarking upon a very obtrusive influence operation. It has earned more kajals than kudos from the international community. So, notwithstanding all this, while America remains in a state of limbo, China is making its initial efforts to reach out to Japan, South Korea, and these RCEP countries to create a new economic architecture in Asia, which is conducive for recovering Asian economy. That notwithstanding, this rift between these two behemoths is going to persist, and that will actually impede any recovery from this major crisis. It has also sent the global economy on a tailspin, and the economists are of the view that the fast-paced global recession is like it may eventually lead to a great depression not seen since the times of 1930. If you go by WTO, estimated loss of GDP will be ranging from 13 to 33%. And as far as International Labour Organization is concerned, they estimate about 200 job losses all over the world, which is very unprecedented. Now, if you look at the US economy, there are estimates that there would be a contraction of about 40% of its economy during 2020. 1/5 of Americans are without jobs, and 35 million Americans have already applied for the unemployment packages. Similar story holds good for China, where it's going through a major economic crisis, but it's shown some initial signs of recovery as far as its export is concerned, about 3.5%. But its imports still are abysmally poor. As far as India is concerned, given the size of our population and our economy, we have a major challenge at hand because nearly 700 million Indians are working in the unorganized sector. Only 20% of them have some kind of an economic security. 2/3 are left to fend for themselves, and our GDP estimates are about maybe as low as 1 to 2%, and our unemployment has skyrocketed from about 6%, which was 45 years highest, to about 26%. Likewise, states and markets have lost confidence in a China dominant manufacturing hubs and supply system. Nations are bound to create hedging stocks, extend periods of economic isolation. It is likely to incentivize indigenization, and they will adopt to measures to selectively couple from the global economic dependence. That means the globalization is going to get a hit. Similarly, companies are also rethinking on how to shrink from the multi-step, multi-country supply chain which dominate production today. And there are other problems of China facing that FDI may not be coming to them, and most of the foreign countries would be tempted to relocate their manufacturing hubs elsewhere, and that would offer plethora of opportunities for countries like India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam to actually host some of these manufacturing hubs. You see, at this critical juncture, international institution had a very important role to play to galvanize the international cooperation. But unfortunately, WHO itself has got involved in a lot of controversy, being seen as pro-China. WTO is also riddled with many contradictions and challenges, and there are debates raging that the UN and all its organs are actually white elephants and have proven to be incapable of dealing with this humanitarian crisis. There are talks about need to create an international force comprising doctors, nursing staff, with appropriate skills, equipment, and medicine to cope up with humanitarian crisis of this magnitude. And there is also an opinion that now the regional organizations such as the G20, ASEAN, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, these will play a more prominent role in fostering regional cooperation and regional integration, be it economy or dealing with security like issues are concerned. This pandemic has also severely impacted people-to-people contact. It has actually reduced number of international travel, conferences, world beats, university admissions, acceptance of labor force, visa regimes have become more stringent, border controls are going to be more strident. All sectors across the spectrum have been very badly affected, and migrations are going to be very big issue. The developed countries will be very hesitant to take migrants from developing countries. It will cause some kind of socio-economic tensions within those countries. On the other hand, low middle income countries, because of the job stresses, they'll be tempted to go and seek greener pastures, and that would lead to illegal migration and would further impact intra and interstate relations. There is also a debate now on the new models of governance, because from experience it has been seen that authoritarian and quasi-authoritarian regimes have fared better in dealing with the crisis vis-a-vis liberal democracies. So this is going to throw up a debate: which mode of governance is better? Should it be, some kind of a quasi democracy, or it's the democracy? And whether Europe will still be following the Schengen open regime, border regime, or it will become a fortress Europe. These are the issues that will be debated hotly. As far as security spectrum is concerned, the questions are today arising that are we preparing for wrong kind of wars, whether you call them hybrid war or asymmetric war, whereas mankind is facing a major security crisis. So countries are going to think through their defense budget, maybe allocate more funds for improving health sector, enhancing capacity to deal with non-traditional security threats, and militaries will re-evaluate their threat perception and adopt a de novo approach to military modernization. Biological warfare and bioterrorism will be new flavors in the spectrum of conflict. And this will give rise to new generation technologies. More and more R&D effort will be on pathogens, genetic engineering, immunology, inoculation, vaccine, prophylactics, and this will also affect, that probably the establishments that are manpower heavy have been worst affected, whereas technologically intensive organizations have maintained their efficiency. So even in our business and office work, information technology will actually be finding its place, and a new kind of a working environment and business environment, which is based on digital technology, social data banks, identification, machine learning, Internet of Things, use of robotics in manufacturing and healthcare system. All these things will actually receive a boost. In conclusion, I would say that in the past, such kind of cataclysmic events have ushered paradigm shifts in the world order. Pre-corona geopolitical milieu as it is, was characterized by heightened tension between US on one hand and China and Russia on the other. But other policy centers like European Union and Indo-Pacific powers were also under economic stresses. Islamic world also was at loggerheads within and with the non-Muslim world. Corona pandemic has become a great leveler, and it has sorted out everyone irrespective of region, religion, your political ideologies and things like that. So it in a sense has brought about a paradigm shift in the geopolitical future of the world, and it amply shows that it is very difficult for one particular actor to shape the world. There you need multiple actors, and that consensus at the moment is missing. New technologies and challenges have outpaced the collective ability to contend with them. Therefore, what we need to see is, will such a new order would include greater cooperation to monitor these outbreaks like infectious diseases, and it will usher or it will impel countries for greater willingness to address other non-traditional security threats which are of existential in nature, like climate change, set rules for cyberspace, assist forced migrants, and tackle proliferation and terrorism. We need to wait and watch. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think you really like painted the very broader pictures of the repercussions of COVID-19 global scenario. So that will be really like helpful for us to further discuss in this webinar. So now I'd like to request Dr. Umesh Bhattarai, sir, to for his remarks.
Thank you, Shyamji. My name is Umesh Bhattarai. My background is the military. I served for some time with Nepal Army. And presently I am a scholar for strategy and security. Now I am going to talk about the global pandemic impact of coronavirus. The world is united now to fight the invisible enemy, that is coronavirus, which was never imagined before, other than Sylvia Brownie in her book, End of Days, Predictions and Processes about the end of the world, published in 2008. The page, the book page number 312 states as in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread globally, attacking the lungs and bronchial tubes. I think I am audible, right, Shyamji?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Yeah, please continue.
Thank you. Similarly, SARS, that was in 2003, H1N1 2009, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, that is 2012, Zika virus 26, and Ebola 2014, killed many but was controlled in a short duration. All these viruses challenged our personal hygiene and sanitation habits. Except coronavirus, the global impact to human security was less affected, including human deaths after Spanish flu in around 1920, so as economic loss and social disorder. As per BBC, the Eurozone economy may shrink to 7.5% in 2020 and 6.25% in 2021. The European Union forecast the worst economic crisis after 1930 global depression. The manufacturing industries have already fallen down in Europe drastically in the last month of April, though only 4 months of COVID pandemic noticed in China. Now I will come to USA. USA alone, 1.2 million people are confirmed infected and 71,000.
Sorry to interrupt. I request like all of the speaker and pan other participant to just mute their audio so that we can like you know.
Right. Thank you, Samji. In alone USA only, 1.2 million people are confirmed infectious and 71,000 deaths. It has been forecasted by the US health workers that the infections may increase once the businesses open there. The US total jobless counts 33 million since March 21st. Seeking for unemployment benefits count 3.2 million new claims in this week of May only. This shows how the pandemic is playing in USA alone. The BBC reports the millennial has mainly faced 9/11 global terrorist impact, 2008 economic recession, and this coronavirus impact now. The baby boomers are expected to bear huge economic shocks with long-lasting effect in their incomes. It was covered in the BBC. It is not new. Basically, the magnitude of coronavirus effect has been doubled due to the effect of the climate change, as the expert says. Internally displaced people who are searching for their shelter, and homeless who are more prone to this impact. A global approach to understand health issues, food security, social networks are inherent to manage their effects at large. In fact, our focus should be to enhance global cooperation on food, livelihood, and health preservation. In addition, a strong mindset to manage insecurities, including physical security of the mass, is the must. Overall, a critical learning to enhance the immunity and the best practices are inherent. As we all know, the children, old age people, physically disabled, and the health workers are more vulnerable from coronavirus. Basically, 4 billion people have no reach to hygiene and sanitation globally. 3 million cannot afford even for hand wash. Based on 2019 WHO and UNICEF report, out of 3 schools, 1, and over 5 health centers, 1 lakh hygiene and sanitation material worldwide.
Meeting. Yeah, everybody.
As resiliency has its own importance, USA is trying to ease the lockdown, so as India, Germany, UK, Italy, and Spain. By obvious attempt, China, South Korea, and Japan could slow down the virus spread. Pakistan is lifting lockdown tomorrow. No doubt, this virus impact has paralyzed the entire system, but still the world is trying to revive the economy and social lives again. The strategy that I suggest personally, so every nations need high degree of coordination. That is understanding of the problem of each other and helping attitude. Equity-based plan and budgeting with full transparency as integrated strategy to fight coronavirus at all levels of governments. More investment needed to hygiene and sanitation. So as reach to water is must to ensure hygiene. We must understand that Right to health is directly related to human security as well as human rights. All approach leading to fight coronavirus should have global approach at all levels. I thank you, Shyamji, and all the listeners.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
your.
you. Thank you, sir, for your insightful remarks. So once again, I'd like to request all the speakers and then participant to mute the audio. So we are like observing some a sound disturbance. So that will be really helpful. So in our second part, we'll try to analyze the South Asian scenario. That is the ramifications of COVID-19 in a South Asian scenario. Though we know that the coronavirus cases in the South Asian region are comparatively low, but experts also like opinion that deficit of testing could have been like contributed to this lower level of recorded cases. We know that partial or complete lockdowns are being imposed in almost every country in the SAARC region. We are also now witnessing the colossal effect on tourism industry and effects in the remittance inflow and among others. So at the same time, like World Bank had suggested that the South Asia could face the worst economic slump in last 40 years. So that is really that can really have a very severe economic implications. But we know that there has been like some initiative with the proposal from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. South Asia has established the COVID-19 emergency fund, and voluntarily every country has like contributed to that fund. So definitely there is some kind of initiative has been taken to cooperatively fight this pandemic. So in this section, I like to request our two panelists to give us the sense about the implications of COVID-19 in a South Asian context. So can I request Rajiv, sir?
Thank you. I'll introduce myself. I'm Major General Rajiv Narayanan. I'm the head for the Center for Strategic Studies and Simulation at the USI of India. And I would be touching on the COVID impact on South Asia. As Shyam had already mentioned that about the figures, I will not go into the figures because figures are available on the net. There was a brief analysis. I will give about 2-3 points on that of our figures and the impact as it is happening. One major point that has come out is that our revival and mortality rates are rather low. Some people think that because we go in for our BCG injections for tuberculosis as a child, others also feel that because of acute deficiency of basic services, when we grow up, whether you take water, hygiene, cleanliness, when we grow up, we come up with our own immune system. But be that as it may, Shyam had rightly pointed out that the figures that are being shown could be misleading. We are not testing. Our health services outreach to the hinterland, less said about it, the better. So we actually don't know the stark figures. As they say, you require 4 T's, which is the testing, tracking, tracing, and treatment. Well, we are now improving the testing, and India has done some effort in this. Their own internal self-developed testing has started coming into the pipeline. And starting from zero output, today India is the second largest manufacturer of PPEs to the tune of 1.7 lakhs. And I'm sure this should be available to South Asia. About the economic impact, what is very interesting is as of 7th April, IMF and World Bank had generated their reports. 4 countries in SAARC face recession. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and the worst affected, of course, is Maldives, which essentially thrives only on tourism, and that's dead. Now, that is the kind of impact that we are seeing, and a very, you could say, subdued growth rate being given to the other 4, ranging from 1.9 to about 3%. That is the stark future for 2020. I'm not even touching or trying to extrapolate to 2021, because I personally feel it is the responses of what the government does which will dictate what will happen in 2021. As of now, I feel personally it's too far to predict what is going to happen there. So a lot of people are talking about that what will come out in the world is isolationism. I don't think that is correct. Since if you look at South Asia, unless we join hands together and work together, it will be very difficult to overcome currently the COVID and also subsequently to revive your economy post-COVID. It is just not feasible for every country to do that. Globalization as we know it may not survive, but regional multilateralism will survive, and it is the economics of it which will make it survive. So that is one which is very important, and we have to make sure that we hold hands together. Now, the crux of the solution will be that each country has learned a lesson that they would need to maintain certain degree of self-reliance, and a regional interdependence would be better. And towards that end, I feel that the BBIN and BIMSTEC would be a good, you could say, an overarching architecture to work under. Essentially, SAARC suffers from the problem of Pakistan not agreeing to anything that India has to offer. So it becomes a stumbling block. And when you look at BBIN and BIMSTEC, and if you expand BIMSTEC to include Maldives, then it covers everybody else. So that is my personal opinion. And the essence, what we have to learn is like what General Sharma had mentioned, that the big power rivalry is only going to deepen. And once it deepens, then you have to be very careful that individually you don't fall under the vassalage, I would term it, of either power. The degree of vassalage may differ, whether one says one power is going to absorb you economically or the other power is going to force you to join it economically. That depends. There is a saying in English, united we stand, divided we fall. Now this has much, much more meaning for South Asia, especially in dealing with the COVID. Which country is stemming forward to help you out? Everybody has to do it themselves. That the first step has been taken by Prime Minister Modi in creating the fund. I feel that is not enough. You need to go forward. Let us start getting into joint research for the vaccines. Let us start looking at joint research for treatments. Each country has its own strength which is available. Let us pool in our resources and start working towards that to overcome. Our own director, AIMS, has yesterday gone on record to say, AIMS is All India Institute of Military Science, Medical Sciences, and he says that the peak in India is not likely to come before June, July. Now that is the situation. We really don't know how you're going to extrapolate and in which manner. Where will it increase? Where will it go? And the best way to counter it, to get your vaccine fast, get your treatment in place fast. And for that, just the COVID fund doesn't suffice. Let us start going in for that. Let us start going in for joint manufacture of these PPEs, the ventilators that would be needed. India is becoming self-sufficient as far as the ventilators are concerned. We should stretch out now to the region, start generating local manufacture of these ventilators and PPEs, help the countries grow. That is the one way you're going to survive this COVID together. Individually, no nation can survive. And once you join hands, to sum up all, I will say, what happens, like in maneuver warfare, being an army man, the sum of the parts is always greater than the whole. That is what you have to remember, that when you join together and work together hand in hand, you would not only come out of the COVID more strong, and learning from example from these, the trust will develop, the political trust, the cultural trust, the societal trust develop, you will be able to recover economically post-COVID better. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv, for your take. I think you really emphasize on like optimizing the synergetic effort in order to like take maximum benefit from the available resources at disposal in the region. So now I'd like to request Navaraj sir for your take. Yeah.
Are you here?
Yeah.
Thank you, Shyam, and namaste. And good afternoon.
I think, sir, you need to make a little bit louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it audible now?
Somehow. Yeah, thank
you. Okay. Thank you. Namaskar to all participants here. Thank you, AIDIA, and you, Yasai, for organizing such pertinent discussion and bringing all the professionals together here. Thank you very much. And advantage for me is, as General Rajiv, he already spoke many issues concerning regional fight against COVID-19. So I agree in all of issues he spoke about. And my focus will be mostly on cross-cutting and some law and order perspective while fighting COVID-19 in the region. So I don't have to talk about the data, as data are already there. One thing, what Ms. General Rajiv, he spoke about the death toll. Whatever region, we have a low death toll, and if we will be capable enough to keep the rate low in future, definitely the credit goes to the governments, credit goes to the regional cooperation, credit goes to the people here, and the ordinary citizens will be also be thankful about keeping it low. Let me bring some areas where the impact will be very high. I'm briefly talking about impacts, because when you talk about security and law and order, all other issues they relate there, whether it is commercial activities, education, economy, transportation, religious activities, workers' movement, internal or external employment, food security, entertainment, other events, tourism, whether it is historical sites or buildings, zoos, safaris, whatever we talk about, sports, healthcare services and pharmaceuticals, even politics. All these things has been affected by COVID-19, and the impact is tremendous in all these areas, and main impact goes to economy, unemployment, which generates frustration, which generates angrier youth, which generates confused youth and population. That brings lot of uncertain future for the citizens, and there the challenge comes. So when we talk about what we should do during the COVID-19 is going on, proper actions to curb the kind of health emergencies should be there. If we fail in any stages, I don't have to explain about it is all in WHO instructions. Countries, they have their own experiences and own code of health emergency practices. They should follow it properly and make sure, especially people who don't have the voice, who are on hand to mouth, who are poor, who cannot eat without working further, they are brought into that. and another protect their own people as well as people who are stranded in their country and they are not able to go to their own countries. Identify, assist, and care of the poor, as I said, and the vulnerables, old, sick people, jobless people, because new unemployment is growing each day, as predecessors they already spoke about, and capacity building of national health institutions, that is very important. We have seen the best health practices countries, they faltered. So that should not happen in the region because we had time, 2 months, 3 months time to prepare for that. And inter-agencies working, that is very important. It is not only health officials and health workers. We have securities, militaries, police, paramilitaries, other supply chain workers. All these should come into one umbrella, one command, and work together so that during activities are properly handled and no frustration, no gaps are left. Likewise, safe transportation of citizens within and from the other part of the world. When we talk about lockdown, we have locked down people where they were, but as week passes, month passes, the patients and their tolerance will grow, and they start uniting. Even the mafias and other people, they approach them. There will be human trafficking in different way. So it has to be done properly. Local governments should be, my personal view, local governments should be capacitated. They should be empowered, and they should handle the local quarantine. So the people, especially when I talk about this, we in South Asia, many countries have porous open borders, and people both sides they have relations. So we cannot man all the open borders. We have 10,000 of porous borders between India and Nepal only. So we have to, at some point, bring these people to the local quarantine so they feel at home, and after they complete their quarantine time, they should be re-established to their own villages or cities. And again, who are the first and harshly affected? The poor. So ensure minimum activities are met and maintained during COVID-19. People like lower level day-to-day workers, they should have their daily bread and butter somehow. So that has to be maintained. Now, when we talk about this, what happens? Crime grows. What kind of crime? Conventional crimes are less in this time because most of the people are in villages and houses. That doesn't happen. But other type of crimes, financial crimes, bank frauds, like violence, domestic violences, other organized crime, human trafficking, cross-border crimes, smugglings, all these things happen. Terrorism. Terrorism in different form, whether it could be chemical, biochemical, or other forms, they may gain strength during this, and sometime later they may hit to any countries they target. So during this time, security agencies and other agencies within this region, they should work hand in hand so that this kind of activity doesn't grow in the area. So again, cyber crimes will be very important to check in. Now everything is online, digital, education digital, business digital. So there will be more space, and in our region, people are less literate in cyber things, digital things. So that has to be checked. Black market is smugglers I already spoke about. So virtual cooperations among the countries, agencies, ministries, government, citizens, forums, that will definitely help to teach the local people and establish a very reliable working relation among the agencies. Sorry, I don't know whether you are seeing me or not, but oh, okay. Now I'm there.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So these are the things we have to look into during the COVID and post-COVID. I have very few things for the post-COVID. There will be a lot of unemployment. Means many people return back to the country, to the village, to the city they belong to, and huge total of youth frustrated, aggressive, and with energy will be there. So it will be a source of anger, frustration, and agitation. So that can be capitalized by criminals, can be utilized by the terrorists, can be utilized for the political cause. So they are the explosives coming back. Unless we will have the proper employment, utilization of these forces to the positive side, there will be a lot of security concerns in all these countries. So collectively, as Major General Rajiv spoke before, this country, we all should work together, especially from my side, what I can say is India as the larger country with a lot of resources, and of course, ahead of all these South Asian countries, they should take the lead, and not only for themselves, they should help neighboring countries also, so that all will be free of COVID-19 at the end of the day, so that whether they talk about second wave, third wave, whatever wave, we collectively survive and live together. Same way, drug peddlers, human traffickers, weapon dealers, I already spoke about terrorists. They can trap all these young, energetic forces. We have to be very careful about that. Again, one thing we haven't spoke much about is depending on how we cooperated each other, collaborated each other, helped each other, that will design the future course of relation among our South Asian nations also. I would like to say here that SAARC or BIMSTEC both should be very active to bring back the economy, bring back the relation to the right track in future. If we do all these things, definitely jointly we'll survive COVID-19, and everyone is looking towards South Asia also for the future. So we should work, collaborate together. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing the security implications in different sectors and some of the practical solutions over there. So now in third part, we will try to analyze the security implications in Nepal-India relations. So we know that Nepal-India has open border, and we have like very huge economic interdependence. Almost like millions of citizens lives across the country. And at the same time, like we also do have the in terms of power relations, so asymmetrical power relations. But dealing with this pandemic bilaterally, what we can do. So we need to, I think we'll discuss on these issues. So for this, I'd like to request first Binoj, sir.
You're asking me to start?
And just briefly, I'm just seeing the in the chat box that many of you wanted to ask the question. So after listening to of our panelists, we will just go through it. Okay. Okay, Binoj, sir.
Should I start?
No.
Shyam, should I start, or you are asking some questions?
Yeah. I'm asking for like first a Binoj to respond, and then after you.
All right. Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
You can hear me, Shyam?
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank AIDIA Nepal and USI India for inviting me to be part of this important webinar on Nepal-India security relationship during and post-COVID. So my topic today is India-Nepal relationship. So an opportunity for me to recognize and salute all the health practitioners, security personnel, administrators, bureaucrats, politicians, and all those voluntarily involved, directly and indirectly, the efforts of the governments of South Asian nations have been putting together to control the COVID-19. So Nepal and India to look for a cohesive front and focus on the pandemic and the impact the pandemic would bring about. Importantly, is an opportunity to find ways and means to answer the established excellent cooperations between our two nations. So the coronavirus apparently has appeared to be a lethal pandemic when the world has faced similar outbreaks in the past. So unexpectedly, outbreaks, pandemics have been attacking human beings from plague and now COVID-19, interestingly, every century, every 100 years. So the different approach for the global power and the global body can be witnessed more. So South Asians have also witnessed the heads of governments of SAARC come boarding together. So with COVID-19 is now acknowledged as an essential step in the global region and domestic endeavors to curb the pandemic. So unanticipated times, it has been collectively agreed and also will call for anticipated measures. Therefore, 5 lessons that will persuade all of us. One is that the pandemic is more than a global health devastation. Second, no one nation can fight the virus alone. Neither the virus has borders or citizenship. 3 is the lack of preparedness and capabilities of our public health systems. 4, the argument of the WHO and the SAARC for its contentment. And 5, the adoption of a repressive measures for regions unreached to the pandemic, so the outbreak risks becoming a human rights crisis. So this leads to a reservation and functioning of the global structure, the United Nations, SAARC's credibility, bilateral cooperation, and countries' capabilities to control this disease, as well as efficiency or recovery. So the video conferences of the heads of SAARC, besides Pakistan's PM, who was represented by the Minister of Health, has held to a collections of more than $21.8 million to dealing with the pandemic, with no domain effect so far. Of the SAARC nations, Afghanistan, Pakistan borders Iran, India borders China and Myanmar. As we all well know, northern Nepal is Tibet of China and India on the east, west and south covering 1,800 kilometers open border. So it is essential to look into the definition of security in crisis. And now during the post-COVID-19 as cluster of issues, one insecurity leading to another insecurities, one insecurity leading to regional insecurities. So to talk about this, I will talk about 4 fields. One is food security. Nepal is one of the 55 food crisis countries. The World Food Program has assessment that Nepal has improved, but 4.6 million people are still food insecure. But the Ministry of Agriculture, to 1 in 5 households is poor, 1 in 10 is extremely poor, and 1 in 2 are food insecure. So sustaining agriculture sector through the crisis is vital. The second is service sector, tourism. The service sector, the largest contribution of GDP in Nepal, will not be revived immediately due to many restrictions of travel and immobility. Third is migration for work. So the inflow of remittance, of which over 1/3 of the households of the left behind families in Nepal are dependent. So limited job opportunities, political turmoil, and economic conflicts in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries and Malaysia are already impacting the labor migration. Now with the pandemic estimated to be much higher, the unemployment rate will significantly rise. Nepal is the 19th largest to the world and 4th in South Asia to receive the remittance of estimated like about 8.1 billion US dollars. And the next, the fourth, is the terror and criminal groups. So being alert on criminal groups, terror groups, illegal activities, as well as corruption, as these non-state and state actors are viable to promote these acts using the pandemic crisis as an opportunity. So when the government machinery is busy, involved with the actual threat and political maneuvering. So to assure the future in a security cooperation, strategies are required. Exit strategy for neutralizing COVID-19 pandemic for short term, and strategic measures for strong security cooperation for long term. So the decision of the political leaders in the few weeks will shape the future. This is a global problem of all nations developed or at least the least developed and need common solutions. Nepal and India, with the same civilization and geographical alignment, open border, and now managing the health hazard with same modalities, will have to find ways and means for during and post COVID-19. So way forward is in two parts. One, 10 dealings between Nepal and India appear to be expressed that will bear geopolitical, geoeconomic consequences to build a sober and reliable intelligence-based assessments. One is the virus is breaching into the community, but is still localized. To arrive to the triumph, Nepal and India must draw and launch an exit strategy with two distinct policies: disengagement within the country and engagement with the population returning home by protecting the cultural values and religious harmony that both countries enjoy. Second, law enforcement forces and intelligence community should be geared up with new strategies to deal with law and order's instability, as the foreign migrations for work will virtually discontinue and casual employment will be impacted severely. So there is a likelihood of millions unemployed with thousands additional every year. Disparity between the haves and the have-nots is very visible. Third is the strategy and the rules of dealing with the health crisis have got to modify. Nepal and India needs new stances, a new definition and strategy of conquest as we enter the third phase. Four, when biological warfare is ruled out, nature from time to time is reacting with viruses. So nations, India and Nepal, must go into green investment, adopting green stimulus from the mountains to the oceans. Fifth is the rights guaranteed by the constitutions of our countries should prepare in full swing with the culminations of lockdowns and end of likelihood of reoccurrence of COVID. Human rights must be guided with response and recuperations of health, social, culture, and traditional practices. Sixth, energizing bilateral committees, the bilateral consultative groups of security for security in cordial environments during the COVID-19 treatment. Seven, dedicated line of supply for basic essentials for Nepal through India. Eighth is the effective connectivity by bringing the railways and waterways to Nepal's territory. Ninth is the regular meetings of joint working committees as a political will and streamline other issues. And the last is communicating major concerns about comprehensive and strategic issues by Kathmandu-Delhi political engagements. And the second way forward is providing diplomatic space for security. Establish security diplomacy by initiating a defense ministers conference and a military chiefs conference, intelligence chiefs meetings, law enforcement chiefs meetings. So to conclude, in the interconnected and consistent world, a variety of well-administered and efficient managed cooperations will be desirable. We must all decide whether to see ourselves as a separate, isolated, or part of a larger we that appreciates and accomplishes our irreversible interdependence. As other global calamities constricting, this is again examinations we have to evaluate, and we can't afford to fail. Thank you, Shyam.
Okay, thank you, sir, for forwarding some categorical recommendations that how India and Nepal bilaterally deal with this, security implications that is brought by COVID-19 crisis. So now I'd like to request Lieutenant General G.S. Katoch, sir, for your remarks.
Thank you, Shyam. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Namaste to everybody. I am Lieutenant General Katoch, retired from the Army in 2016 as the Director General Perspective Planning, which the Perspective Planning Directorate is the institutional think tank of the Indian Army. And I have been a distinguished fellow at the USI. And of course, I took over as the head of the USI editorial team on the 1st of April. So that is during the COVID time. So I have not yet sat on my chair, been working from home. And I'm delighted today to be speaking at this maiden webinar of the AIDIA, Nepal and USA of India. And of course, being the last speaker, a number of points, which I may say, would have been touched upon in some form or the other by the previous speakers. And I will be speaking on Indo-Nepal relations with the COVID-19 backdrop. Now, I think it bears no mention that India and Nepal have been living as close neighbors of South Asia since the existence of India. And the relationship between the two countries is bound by history, geography, economic cooperation, socio-cultural ties, and people-to-people relations. Like any two members of a family, we may have our minor differences and arguments, but blood is thicker than water, hypothetical, and literal blood ties bind us. In fact, I have a niece who's married in Nepal. My wife has got a cousin sister who's married in Nepal. So a lot of things bind us. And of course, the thing which binds us most is the Indo-Nepal Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1950, which is the bedrock of the special relations that we have. And under this treaty, Nepalese citizens enjoy unparalleled advantages in India, availing facilities and opportunities at par with Indian citizens. Nearly 1.5 million Nepalese citizens live and work in India, and a large number of Indians live and work in Nepal. Of course, India is Nepal's largest trade partner and source of foreign investment. Of course, the trade is, by the trade documents, it is tilted in India's favor. But really speaking, it is not that bad because of the remittances which have been mentioned earlier also. And remittances from India are, a large amount of that comes across in an informal manner. And therefore, when the finances or financial documents are collated, many of these remittances get missed out. We have good treaties of trade and transit, and many things on a non-reciprocal basis are provided, like duty-free access into the Indian market for all Nepalese manufactured articles, barring a short negative list like cigarettes, alcohol, cosmetics, etc. And of course, I also know that since the GST regime has started in India, it has been to a bit of disadvantage of Nepal because the taxes increase. But I am not an expert on the subject, but I'm told that people are working towards sorting out this particular problem. Now, keeping in the Treaty of 1950 makes our border very open, one of the very, very open borders. So it is but natural that COVID-19 would impact India and Nepal. And to my knowledge, I guess it may be the first time that really speaking, our open border has got a little closed. In fact, I was reading in the newspaper today that there was an incident where two Indians from the village close to the Nepal border crossed across for whatever purpose they crossed across, but they were straight away checked by the Nepalese police, the border police which is there, and thereafter, of course, there was a bit of a a fight there, and the Nepalese citizens also came out and thrashed them and sent them back. So COVID has managed to close our border uh, partially, and I'm sure once this scare goes away, this particular thing will again become an open border. It has been brought out earlier also that what has been the impact of COVID on Nepal, and Nepal, which has large dependence on tourism and remittances, will be hard hit when natural or artificial barriers to movement arise, both from India and from across the globe. And I thought that when I was examining this particular factor, I thought it would be worthwhile to compare a little bit between Switzerland and Nepal, that their GDP is made up in what manner. So as far as Switzerland is concerned, the service sector is 72%, industry is 27%, and agriculture is 1%. In case of Nepal, service sector is 55%, industry is 15%, and agriculture is 30%. It may be, figures may vary a little bit because I got these figures from somewhere on the internet. But what was interesting was that as far as Switzerland is concerned, the service sector of 72%, only 10% is tourism. The rest, more or less, is largely banking. So therefore, the crisis of 2008 may have affected Switzerland in a very negative manner, but the present one will not impact it as badly. Now, in the case of Nepal, the service sector, about 55%, bulk of it is service through overseas workers and tourism. And they of course, which comes to about what I read is about, let us say about 35%. But then Nepal will get impacted once, a thing like COVID happens. So Nepal needs to diversify, build up its industry so that everything is not towards remittances and towards tourism. Though, of course, we are well aware that Nepal has got huge potential for tourism and it needs to be developed further. But things like COVID bring out that in a very globalized world, these sort of things had happened. General Sharma had mentioned it's a black swan event. Yes, it's a black swan event. And we do hope that it does not happen, time and again, but we need to be careful about it. Nepal is suffering from a dearth of infrastructural investment, and a rising China, a cash-rich China can supply Nepal with key investments, whereas India can complement this equation by upgrading trade linkages with Nepal and providing Nepal a market. However, as I understand, India requires to make its import tariff structure more conducive towards that. Sometimes we in India, we get a little concerned that the Chinese are, they want to invest there in power generation in Nepal. But we should not get too concerned about it. If it helps Nepal, it is very good. And the power which is generated in Nepal is not going to be bought by the Chinese because they are, as it is, very power surplus themselves. And Nepal would be able to sell it to India and to Bangladesh. India too has overcapacity in thermal power, but hydropower, which is the clean power which Nepal has got, in the days to come will always become more and more sought after and more valued. That said, the COVID crisis has strengthened our regional and global bonds. The previous speakers have also mentioned how we have all got together. Mention was made of the 15 March video conference which was held, in which all 8 SAARC countries participated. It was also brought out that the participation by Pakistan was not at the level that we thought it should be, but still it is okay. At least they participated. And SAARC, which was becoming a little hamstrung, hopefully COVID will infuse fresh energy into it. And we all will work towards making it work better, including Pakistan, including all of us. As part of our ongoing bilateral cooperation to fight COVID-19, we have sent a consignment of 23 tons of medicines to Nepal as a gift from the people of India. It is not much, but it is a gesture. We will try to give as much as we can. It is not that Nepal is not receiving help from elsewhere. It is receiving from other countries also who can help, and in particular China, and there's nothing wrong in that. Certain custom procedures in case of China need strengthening. That's what I read, because I think 2 aircraft had been sent by the Nepalese army to get supplies from China. But because of some, I think, May Day holiday, Saturday, Sunday, it is getting delayed. Well, I guess in a situation like this, such delays should not be taking place. Now, COVID has attracted much more worldwide attention because of its higher infection rate, and we are all very concerned. It has led to a sort of a panic in the world. But it is a very heartening thing that to date, no death from COVID has happened in Nepal. But when I say it, I also checked up the figures that deaths from tuberculosis, Nepal has 20 deaths every day from tuberculosis. So therefore, when we start talking of COVID and we start cooperating to fight COVID, we should not forget the other diseases that we have to cooperate to fight. These are also non-traditional security issues, and they need to be fought. Both tuberculosis and COVID are airborne diseases. They are both transmitted person to person, and they are transmitted through the air by coughing. Both the symptoms of both the diseases are similar. They attack the same organ, the lungs. TB, maybe of a couple of other parts like bone TB, etc., but basically lungs. And both affect the elder population. To prevent both, the same things are required: isolation of the infected population, social distancing, hand hygiene, etc. So I do hope that in the days to come, TB, which to my view is a bigger source than COVID, would also get addressed along with it. Why TB doesn't attract so much of attention is that death takes place 2 to 10 years after infection. Hence, there's no fear, no panic generated about it. Yet TB kills 20 people daily in Nepal and more than 600 daily in India. So therefore, these are the issues that we should not forget. Nepal has fought TB very effectively from 2007 to 2017. In 2007, Nepal, TB was the 7th biggest killer in Nepal. And in 2017, it has come down to about the 11th place. So there are a number of other crisis things which are there. But COVID, because of the attention it gets, maybe it is good, because if it can get SARC together, it can get us together in many other fields also. And our relation must take such challenges into account. Although Nepal already made a statement by signing a BRI agreement with China in May 12, 2017, there's a controversy about the US engagement in Nepal, which I think about 2 years back, some US secretary, some official from the State Department, he had made some particular statement that Nepal is part of our Indo-Pacific strategy. But of course, that is a misperception, and it is a misperception based upon not understanding Nepal's interests. Nepal is a young federal democracy, and although its government is now stable, it is a communist one. For India, this is not an issue because Nepal adheres to a democratic state structure, and large number of Indian states in our federal structure have Communist Party government. So there's nothing that India is concerned about there, as long as it's a government formed by the people and they want to run it in the manner it is. With this, I will come to the end of my short talk, and I'll end with the point that in his maiden speech at the United Nations in 2014, Prime Minister Modi used the words Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is from a mantra in the Upanishads, and it means the whole world is one family. The COVID-19 pandemic and how the world was affected by it and how it is fighting it reinforces this point. The whole world is one family. And if one part gets affected, the complete world also bears the consequences. And therefore, this Upanishad mantra is not a geopolitical or a socio-cultural statement. It's a matter of fact. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your insight. Now we'd like to move towards the Q&A session. So I have got some interest and questions over here. Maybe like if you have comment, then you need to be brief. And if you have any questions, then please state that from whom you are expecting the response of your question. So can I request?
I'll be out for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay.
So any questions for me can be addressed after 10 minutes. I have another meeting.
Okay, sir. Fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'd like to request Pawan sir for your questions and brief remarks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Major General Pawan Anand from the USI. I'm a distinguished fellow since the last 3 months. I would like to address the elephant in the room, if I may use that phrase, because we have had a number of speakers which bring out how post-COVID, we all need to look at how we are going to face the economic aspects and get out of the fear of recession in our respective countries. But the elephant in the room, to my mind, still remains in our relations as blood brothers. How is it that with China and its BRI posing so many problems for almost all the countries that come into the ambit of BRI, almost all of them running into a debt trap? Is it more beneficial to have growth mutually, or is it beneficial to make hard choices later on, postpone the hard choices, carry on working with the Chinese BRI initiatives, take their loans at very one-sided conditions, and then thereafter make a hard choice later on? So while to my mind, the BIMSTEC and the BIMS offers a certain amount of mutual growth, the BRI does take most of the countries. Africa is an example, Sri Lanka is an example, Pakistan is heading towards that. It takes it on a more one-sided track. So would Nepal be making that hard choice later on, or would Nepal make the hard choices now? I would like to address this question to my friends from the Nepalese side.
Binoj sir, do you want to respond?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, my perception on the BRI is naturally China's its political influence through economic media. So actually, Nepal is just an additional number in the country. So I don't think Nepal really lies on the concept or the objectives of the BRI. It is more the Chinese trying to get to the Indian Ocean. So the importance is the CPEC and China, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India corridor. So these are more important to BRI than the projects that India, Nepal, and China will go ahead, because Nepal is a door to the Indian market. So until and unless China is really sure of the Indian assurances, I think the projects will be there on paper, but will take some time to materialize.
Thank you. Umesh sir, do you have any comment on that question?
Thank you, Shyamji. I would rather say that BRI and BMISTAKE or BBIN both are important for Nepal because of its geopolitical constraints. BRI has its own characteristics, and BMISTAKE, BBIN has its own. And we want to have a good relation with both the countries because you know our position in between India and China. As long as BRI is blamed for a debt trap or something like that, Nepal is very much cautious about, and Nepal want to have all sort of supports in grant, not in debt. Nepal is very clear, I think, the government side also, though we don't represent directly the government. But what I have the impression about Nepal will not go onto the debt side. That's why we need not to be that much worried about. And of course, Indian support is very, very important. And India is our development partner, and it has got we have got a very good relation from the history. With that mindset, I think we should, Nepal has to deal diplomatically with both the countries. I think that will be wise for us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. There is a questions from the Anil Anujaji. Do you want to ask yourself, or I can read it?
Either way is fine. I
Yeah, okay,
have
so.
written the question here, but
Yeah.
I can repeat it. That in changing post-COVID environment, every country, and in this context, I'm addressing it to my Nepalese friends, will be called upon to make choices. I have given 3 questions here. One, the world is divided today in either holding China to account or not holding China to account for the start of the pandemic. Then there's the whole issue of the credibility of multilateral organizations, be it the UN as a whole or WHO. And then with the changing global power equation that we'll see, and more importantly, the changing equation that we'll see in our own region, in the Indo-Pacific region, there will be certain hard choices that we will all be called upon to make. And a country like Nepal will have to make some choices, because today, with declining US power in the Indo-Pacific, the growing Chinese economic, military, political influence, and maybe post-COVID, it may just turn out to be more assertive. Now, making these hard choices in a neighborhood where 2 of your neighbors may be making opposite choices, different choices. Now, how do you look at this geopolitical environment unfolding in front of you, and you making these choices? Your very broad views on this, please. Anybody?
Samji, can I take on this?
Okay, fine.
Thank you, sir. Basically, the first question was, world is divided and blaming China for entire misdeeds. I don't agree to that, because still it has not been proved that this pandemic has been started from Wuhan. Only this conspiracy theory that goes on, but we should not believe on that. And unless it becomes concretely clear, or crystal clear, I mean to say, we cannot make any opinion about this. about the multilateral bodies question about how to deal with in the post-COVID environment. Of course, now if we see the leadership, the world leaders, they are divided. That's why the whole United Nations is not being able to function so effectively, so as WHO is also victim. See the leadership at USA, see the leadership, of course, very moderate and very sober China, and see even Russian leadership. Also, so many leaders who are, they are more nationalist, of course, has to be nationalist. We don't blame for that. But it's still how to deal with the humanitarian aspect of the people. It is very, very important. That's why the United Nations is becoming more ineffective at the moment. That's why we should not blame entirely to United Nations and its apex bodies. And the third question that you mentioned about Indo-Pacific, I think, well, it was Asia Pacific before, but how it became Indo-Pacific, that is also a big dilemma. And it is the two main world powers rival to each other, that is USA and China. And of course, other regional powers and world powers, they also play into around. But still, being a small country, we have got our own problem, and we are also having the political differences in our home. That's why there is a big problem going on whether to accept this US multi-million project or not, that is related with Indo-Pacific or something. This sort of problems are going on, and there is a big problem in the Indian Ocean also, and Chinese aspiration, or we can say it is more assertive in the world politics. That's why the whole problem is getting mess into it. We are aware of all these things, but still, being a small country and being in the buffer, we have our own diplomatic, we need to develop a own diplomatic channel, own diplomatic technique rather, to tackle all these things. Thank you.
With your permission, may I add something, sir?
Right.
Briefly, please.
I appreciate the views that you've given. And it is precisely for this reason that it's a huge challenge to make these choices that I raised this very question. And as a friendly co-participant, my only suggestion on this is that since you'll have to make independent, sovereign choices in keeping with your national interests, and since the choices may not always be aligning with each other, may not be congruent with each other, it calls upon two of our nations and our leaders and our decision makers to have much greater transparency in interacting with each other and sharing our perspectives transparently, so that there's a greater understanding and we are able to tread our own individual paths, because the difficulties are already appearing on the horizon. Thank you.
I appreciate, sir. I appreciate your point, and we are aware of all those things. And we want to have a good relation with both our neighbors, not only neighbors, with all the other partners that they are helping us in our development and in stability as such in the region. We are doing our own part. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I think, can I just add a few things? I think, Shyamji, can I add?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah. Actually, we are talking, I think General Saab is talking about the great power contentions. So like, will the state of affairs, the world affairs change in the future? So like, what was it like prior to the coronavirus? And let's say that the second part may be reactive capabilities post-corona. And the third point is the alliance level and alterations may be converted into inclusions with great powers. I think my view would be India has been rebalancing its foreign policy with great powers, and I do not assume that India would also be taking sides post-corona, whether it is China or the United States shaping the future. So I think most of the South Asian countries would be more or less balancing their efforts, balancing ways to secure their interests. And the other thing that I would like to add is, we saw the activation of SAARC by Prime Minister Modi's initiation, which was of course very good, and a lot of revitalized messages were given across. But if it doesn't work, the South Asian nations must find an alternative, maybe BIBIN or BIMSTEC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to make the balance for questions and response, now I'd like to request Saratji, who want to ask the questions for Rajiv sir. Saratji?
Shyam bhai, म अलिकति बोलेर यहाँ एउटा क्वेसन रहेछ.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Yeah, there is some like urgent issues of Navaraj, so he want to leave earlier. So maybe like he will respond that questions, and then after I will request Sarji to pose the question. So yeah, Navaraj.
Thank you, Shyam bhai. First, I'd like to thank Geeta madam, Geeta Katoch. I want to clarify one thing before I answer her question. She has mentioned considering Nepal being a hub in transit. I have some reservation on hub. Nepal is not a hub to any criminal activities. If that is your understanding, you please change it. It's not a hub. And we, being a friendly country, we share thousands of porous borders. We have open movement of people, citizens between our countries. So we have a different type of community in the borders. That makes a lot of security sometimes vulnerable. That is there. It is not how there are so instances, so many major crimes. They were detected by Nepal side and diffused here, or somehow helped your part with the information, or sometimes arresting and apprehending the criminals there. Many big incidents. So what I want to tell you is we have a very good, cordial, effective, and fantastic relation among the security agencies, and government, among the border, the center, when we work. There, to talk about the mechanism, of course, you have mechanisms along the border districts. We have mechanisms in provinces. You have states. We have mechanisms in the center, which meet regularly. They work regularly within the legal mandate. They they are till the day very affected. Sometimes even in from other part or from within to your part. In our part also, there are so many things, so many incidents which happened by criminals coming to their part, or it was planned, designed, and it happened. So when we share a lot of good things, a lot of wide open borders, sometimes that occurs. That doesn't mean it is harm. Second, transit. Of course, when you have open borders, a lot of checking mechanisms, even in the countries which made their countries as island, there are incidents and so many huge crimes happening, crossing all these checking mechanism and detecting mechanism. So just because we have some incident, we should not take it as your neighbor is how they are kind of providing transit. So for me, from my side, what I see is, of course, in future we have to work together in more effective manners with more tangible mechanism, so that these things will be minimized or come to zero. Because after COVID-19, again, so many new dimensions in crime also will come to the region. So both side agencies should work in hand in hand, collaborate, make mechanisms. They are more transparent, more visible, and more trustable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to request Sarat sir for your questions.
Yes, I'm Group Captain Tiwari from USI. My question is to General Narayanan. So this is an extension of China's role in Nepal to role of China as you see it in South Asia per se, both right and toward revival of the region. Do you see more cooperation between India and China in the region coming up, or will it lead to more competition in the region? Thank you, sir.
That's a very interesting question that you've given. At the moment, China too is facing a major economic backlash due to COVID, and all its BRI projects have taken a big hit. China itself needs to do the readjustment, the manner in which the voices have come up in USA also. What it should invest within and what it needs to invest outside. That is point number one. Be that as it may, we look at South Asia itself. South Asia itself is going to face a major economic problem. And South Asia would welcome money from where it comes from. Only thing is you have to be careful to read the fine print. Right? Let us not look at something that either, whether it be any great power, whether it is China, whether it is USA, nobody comes anywhere in any region to support that region. Okay, they come to, whenever they come to invest, it's the geoeconomics, it's their interests which matter. Certain places your interests may coalesce with them. So like some speakers had mentioned earlier, as what I say, if South Asia comes together as one entity, you will be able to deal and negotiate with the great powers from a position of strength. The moment you fall in the trap when they say we are going to do bilateral, bilaterally we don't have the strength. So unless you join together and then negotiate with them for whatever funds that are coming in, the manner in which it is going to come in, the manner in which it will get disbursed, what is the rate at which the rate of interest that they should be charging, and whatever economic activity which is going to take place, what is going to be the profit sharing, that you will be able to do it only together. So I don't look at it as a binary, whether China is coming in with the money or whether the US is coming with the money. I take it as, if we do it together, any great or emerging power coming to invest money, you will be able to negotiate with strength. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, Rajiv, I am on board now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So maybe like we can take 2 or 3 more questions now.
If anybody has a question for me, you're welcome.
Okay. There is one questions from Jitesh Khosla, sir. Do you want to ask or like can I read it?
Yeah, ask.
Okay.
Yeah, you ask.
Okay. You want to ask that as a consequence of economic and social crisis caused by COVID pandemic, environment conducive to extremism and terrorism is likely to enhance. So is any joint mechanism to deal with this possibility being considered? So maybe like anybody can answer like voluntarily or Vike sir, if you want.
So you repeat the question again.
Okay. As a consequences of the economic and social crisis caused by the COVID pandemic, environment is like somehow conducive to the extremism and terrorism is likely to enhance. So is there any joint mechanism to deal with this possibility being considered?
See, as of today, I think there is nothing, because what had happened that UN Secretary General had proposed that we should actually, both America and Russia should agree to freeze all the operations in some of these conflict zones because they are state actors. So both Russia and US have declined that they will not cease these operations. And if you look at what is going on in Afghanistan, despite a agreement between US and Taliban, the Taliban operations there have not shown any respite. Likewise, you look at cross-border terrorism here in India. There has been an increase in cross-border terrorism from Pakistani side, whether it is Syria, Iraq, even that that truce which was signed in Yemen, that is not holding good. And at the moment, the only organization which could have played a role was United Nations Security Council. So they are a divided house, and I don't think in the foreseeable future any consensus is going to emerge on this. Thank you.
There is one questions from Sasi Astana, sir. I don't know. Okay. Like listed that I wish. Okay, maybe like yeah. Okay.
I think General Bhattarai has to ask before me. General Bhattarai has flagged it before me. Let General Bhattarai ask the question. Then I've got a comment to make.
Okay, fine.
Can I ask that?
Yeah, General Bhattarai.
Right. Thank you, sir. I have a question for General Basnyat, my NDC Cosmet. Firstly, that was a great presentation, Binoj. Now you flagged few very important issues which were specific as far as in India and Nepal cooperation is concerned. Some of them look to me a little long term, like connectivity issue, climate change, and like that, right? This virus is going to affect us in a very major way in the short term, right? Couple of areas which you also flagged, and one is the poverty. A lot of our people are going to be pushed into poverty because they are coming back, they'll be without jobs, they were in Gulf country or wherever. India is facing the same problem, right? So one is that. And likewise, our tourism, India depends on tourism hugely. You depend on tourism. Almost 60% of your GDP is based on tourism. Now, this is unlikely to be, it will not happen immediately because the airlines would not fly and things like that, right? So what I wish to ask you is, in short term, which are the specific areas, and I'm meaning economic, right? The livelihood issues, the food security and things like that, where both our countries can cooperate. This year, we have had a very huge bumper crop, and I'm sure that is one area where India can cooperate. Likewise, there can be others which you can identify. The next one is vaccine, right? The vaccine, even if it comes in 6 months or a year, right? Just the production and distribution, and this is going to be distributed worldwide, right? Because the whole world for the first time is affected by one event. So it has to be this thing. So by the time we start, the poor people start getting, it will be quite some time, not 1 year, maybe 2 to 3 years. Is it time for South Asian countries to come together, and if not getting a vaccine, at least their production and things like that, we can come together in some manner? Thank you.
Okay. Binoj sir, your response.
Madhurya, good to see you.
Same here.
Though we've been in contact, and yeah, okay. I believe that togetherness is the answer. Okay, so again, during the COVID, the action, no doubt, but the responsibility is controlling the fatalities, so that and the threats that come across, short term or immediately, is food security. How are we going to address the food security problem for Nepal? Okay, one, and for you, of course. The other thing is for Nepal, it is the supply. Since we're a landlocked country, it is the supply of basic essentials, food, medicine, etc., that comes across, through India. How do you manage all this, or how do you address so that we are all on the same footing, so that I think the next that will come in the near term is the workers returning from the respective countries because of their own conditions. So the workers, the migration coming. Now that is going to add to another food and law and order. Because unemployment, and if I talk about Nepal, is going to go to almost 17 to 19 lakhs unemployed in Nepal alone. So how is the government going to tackle that? But there are opportunities. I see these people coming back. They went unskilled. They're coming back skilled. So how do you actually utilize their efficiency, their things, that the skills in your, in the areas that the country actually requires? So these are also opportunities I see. But the thing, immediately we have to sit down together. I think the two countries, Nepal and India, must sit down together and find out our common problems, so that we can, till the vaccines are ready, so that we can address common issues like food security and law and order situation. Things like I touched upon the terrorist organization, the criminal groups taking advantage of the situations. So these are, I think, common places that if we two countries address, then we'll be helping ourselves for the future.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to request Shashi sir for a brief comment.
Yeah. Firstly, pleasure to meet everyone. I think most of the panelists from Nepal are on LinkedIn with me. So I think I know most of them. And inside, I think are in the house, as USI is concerned, obviously we know each other, so no introduction required. I have few comments to make. That is, firstly, as far as the global power play is concerned, COVID-19 is a major interruption, but this does not mean that it takes away the global power play. The power play will remain. It is still there. It is going to become fierce, and there will be some additional dimensions added to this power play, and we have to get used to that. Secondly, when we talk of COVID-19, it has exposed certain things internationally. It has exposed the weakness of United States to handle a pandemic. It has also exposed the weakness of China as far as trust deficit is concerned globally. Today, the global anger exists against China, and let's not kid ourselves to wish it away. This global anger exists, and today, if the entire globe is quiet, it is because nobody wants to disrupt the medical supply chain of China, and that's the only reason why bulk of the world is not taking certain steps which it could. And certain signals are already appearing, which I am sure with the kind of panelists we have, everybody understands what I'm talking about. Thirdly, when we are talking of BRI, certainly BRI is a failing project. It did not had only the development intention. It had the strategic intention. It had the strategic intention all along. And as far as the failure is concerned, bulk of the people whom debts have been given have refused to pay debts. They are in no position to pay debts. What all China can require is also, there is a limit to it. And therefore, perhaps China itself is facing or getting into its own trap, which it has laid. There should be no doubts on that. China, when it talks of bilaterally, and obviously we all can say that, okay, there is a bilateral treaty and we can look at grants and we can look at things like that. But the fact is, there are no free lunches with anybody. No world power is going to invest in a country without its own national interest. And you have to see what national interest it is, whether it is for India. We have taken a call. We didn't join because our national interest did not allow it to so. But as far as Nepal is concerned, it's a sovereign country. You have to make a sovereign choice, which you have made. And I am very positive that everybody is entitled to make a sovereign choice. And everybody in the world is doing strategic balancing. And India and Nepal, we are no exception to that. And therefore, this is a situation which is going to continue. As far as one more thing which can create a little bit of problem is when we talk of this porous border. Certainly there will be a little bit of restriction. There will be a need for a little bit of restrictions, because through this porous border, as far as the information which we pick up from various sources, is that yes, there is an attempt to push certain terrorists from the open borders. We have a big concession within each other. We have big understanding, but our mutual understanding should not get disturbed by somebody trying to use this big understanding between two of such friendly countries to an advantage, to its advantage, and therefore put us in an embarrassing situation. I'm sure both sides are conscious of it, and I'm sure adequate arrangements would be made. And I am a fair amount of things did come out in the discussion as to what we are trying to do about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Again,
just to make the balance, I want to take one question, which is for our respected Indian panelist. Sabinji wanted to ask, when Nepal is in the time of a difficult situation, let's say the earthquake or a current pandemic situation, why does India initiate some moves against Nepal? This kind of move is making Nepalese angry, most importantly to youth. This kind of move imbalances the Nepal-India relations, and it is disturbing or distorting the Nepal-India relations. How do you think India and Nepal should overcome this situation? So this is for our Indian guests. So anyone like to respond?
Which move is this which is disturbing?
Sorry, sir?
Which is that move which is disturbing India Nepal relations?
I'm not hearing it clearly, sir.
No, he made a when you read it out, he made a mention of some move.
Yeah,
which is like, disturbing India Nepal.
He said that like link road.
Basically, he says.
Yeah.
Which highway? Recent highway.
Link road to Mansarovar Yatra, which goes through the disputed areas. Yeah.
Link road which is connecting the pass, Lipu Lake Pass.
Yeah.
Lipu Lake Pass, which is at the LC. Why should that disturb anything to anybody?
No, in any case, Yatra, Mansarovar is not going through Nepal. It's going to China, Nathula.
He's talking of the connectivity to Lipu Lake Pass, which today Rajnath has said that has through video he has inaugurated the connectivity to the Lipu Lake Pass.
So how does that affect? You mean
while it is there that Lipu Lake Pass is a disputed area while it is there that Lipu Lake Pass is a disputed area, but it also enables our connectivity to the hinterland, which is going up to the Lipu Lake Pass. So it is connecting those villages and all which are
No, so
on
he's
own
talking
side,
about
which is not
Sultanic
disputed. And it is just short of the Lipu Lake Pass. And from Lipu Lake Pass, the Yatra can go to Mansarovar. This is the initial connectivity. That means the cut has been completed. When the road comes up, we can take a call at that time is what I would say.
Yeah,
Sharma sir, you had.
Yeah, definitely. Like it would have been better if he had like a little bit elaborated in this question. So anyway, now there is a okay. I don't know the name. It is written like admin. You wanna
That's
like?
Brigadier Narendra. Yes, sir.
Oh, fine.
Brigadier Narendra.
Okay, fine. Yeah. No, I did. Okay, fine.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Please.
I just have 3 or 4 comments to make. Post-COVID scenario, it could be, the way I perceive it, it could happen that way. The first and foremost is that the global community is going to see shorter supply chain. That means that the hub center, industrial hub center is not going to be China anymore. Because of the disadvantages that the global community faced, especially in the beginning of the COVID, when entire associate products for medical equipment, for medicines, all of them, they were coming from China and there was a disruption. So therefore, I see that the global hub center, industrial hub center are going to be dispersed. It is going to be in a regionalized manner. And therefore, there is a need for South Asia also to work together, not to heavily depend upon one particular country, and rather work out a system by which you have the regional hub center as far as your essentials are concerned. The second aspect is that cognitive immunity has taken a hit as far as post-COVID scenario is concerned. That means that there is reduction in the tolerance against sectarianism, against those countries, those who have, allowed COVID to spread. So there is going to be a cognitive immunity, and therefore that also needs to be taken care, because that will again bring move world from the global, from the globalization to regionalization. The fourth part is, Asthana made a mention very rightly that, the world is not blaming China for spread of COVID. World is blaming China for hiding it, and hiding it for a considerable period, and that actually led to the COVID spreading pan-global. And therefore, before China gets the same place what it had pre-COVID, it has to convince the global community, or it has to explain and apologize. Until or unless China refuses to do so, it continues to maintain arrogance, global community is not going to part. And let me also quote one more example of this is that all the political parties that were compromised because of the Chinese money muscle, if they continue to support Chinese policies across the globe, they will be booted out by the people. The people are going to ask, what actions are you going to take against China, what they have suffered? Italy, Spain, UK, United States, South Asia, you name a country. Australia, people have already started questioning. In Italy, the current government will not return into power because of the Chinese connections. So therefore, there are only two ways. China will have to explain and apologize. Second, the political establishments in the respective countries will have to tell their people what action they are going to take to stop Chinese invading in their private lives and also destroying their economy and the lives. The next point which I would like to make a mention, the problem today in the global, among the global community is
that who will take the leadership. There are three fundamental principles if any bloc or any country want to take the leadership. First and foremost is that it should be able to coordinate response. As on date, there is no country or no, you can say, alliance or a power bloc which can coordinate response against China. The second aspect is that you should be able to provide aid, economic stimulus to stabilize economy. That also does not exist. America cannot do this. And the third is, which is that country which can provide that technological innovation. And the last point in that is the race for vaccine. In case any country or any bloc has got these four fundamental, you can say, kind of a strength with it, it will be able to reorganize global response both against COVID and against China as well. Last point I would like to make a mention. Let's not just brush BRI under the carpet. The fact of the matter is that the debt trap, there are a large number of countries, those who have already paid the price. I'll just quote you a few examples. Kazakhstan, to write off unexplained amount, had ceded 1158 square kilometer of their territory. 2024 is going to be approximately 75 to 90 billion dollar. And how much money have they invested? From 2008 till now, they have invested only 18.5. But what Pakistan is expected to pay back is anything between 75 to 90 billion dollars. And China is not going to write off that loan. It is not going to write off. Hambantota, 99 years already gone. Kyrgyzstan, their national debt, earlier China had 37%, and after BRI, their national debt is 78% only to China. That means out of 100%, 78% has gone, and the country does not have the repaying capacity. So therefore, even post-COVID, what the only leverage China has got is the BRI, where it will try to arm twist all the BRI countries, because the countries which are out of the ambit of BRI, they still will be able to ask questions. But China will arm twist the countries, those who are part of BRI. That's also I have to say.
Okay.
I just want to comment on what Narinder has said. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to give a cross comment. Firstly, I must make it very clear that there is no denying the fact that China is not a benign power. It has its own agenda and it is pursuing that agenda, and therefore whatever actions it has done are accountable. It must be held accountable. Having said that, let's look at a few other aspects. If you look at this, that most of the companies are going to relocate from China. If you look at the Chambers of American Commerce, which is based in Shanghai, they've made a statement that 70% of the companies are not relocating, and they've already started their production in China, and then they are not relocating from China. So we have to talk on facts and figures. Second thing is about inquiry against China. No doubt China must be held accountable. But the American intelligence, National Intelligence Agency, gave a clean chit to China. Then the I-5, on the other hand, which is a conglomerate of 5 intelligence agencies, are still whipping up against China. China has said that let this inquiry be of the scientists of the world. Let it not be some intelligence operatives and some political bigwigs, and it should not have an agenda. Let this inquiry be comprising the top scientists, and we are ready to cooperate. Right? So please keep that also in mind about China's willingness, at least at this juncture, to cooperate. A third issue is about agreed that if China is trying to sort of arm twist some of these countries, but I don't think they can afford to arm twist. The whole world will go against them. Why should China act their own feet? So they will not arm twist. They will probably renegotiate some of these deals with the BRI companies. Otherwise, they are today at loggerheads with the Europe and with America. And if they start arm twisting these smaller countries in their immediate neighborhood or in Eastern Europe, then they would have in any case cooked their goose. So these are some of the counter comments that I have to make.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with these remarks from because sir, maybe like we need to end this webinar here.
Yeah, I think it was very, we see my point here is why I make counter comments. It is very important for us, those who are into this field, to have a balanced view. We should not get carried away by one line of thought or one kind of a perspective. Sure. Today, America and China are involved in battle of narratives, you know, and each side is trying to win. Americans are no less in influence operations than the Chinese are. In fact, I would say Americans are far more advanced, far more sophisticated than the Chinese are, right? So therefore, we have to do our own reading by looking at all the things in a very comprehensive and holistic manner and then form our opinion. Neither should I end up doing the heavy weight of China, heavy lifting for United States of America, nor should I become part of an advocacy group for China. We, each one of us, have our own national interest, and our assessment should be guided by a holistic view, and so that we can then give a balanced assessment to our own policy makers and make informed policy choices. With these words, I think I must thank you all, particularly KCU, for taking this initiative and organizing this conference. These are just the baby steps, and I'm sure in due course of time, with better understanding and rapport, we'll be able to do a much better job of it. It was wonderful listening to each one of you, and also the question answer session was very invigorating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And AIDIA is also looking forward to similar cooperations in the future, so that we can have the similar kind of discourse. We can increase, our confidence level, and we can add the mutual benefit to our respective national interest. So thank you all of you, the speakers and participants, for your active engagements. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.